Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking on a truly monumental, yet often overlooked, ancient text.
Hmm.
The book of 1 Chronicles. Our sources for this deep dive are direct excerpts from the text itself, its outlines, key chapters, giving us a real window into its message. Now, for many people, 1 Chronicles might just seem like, well, a daunting list of names, numbers, maybe even a bit dry,
Yeah.
something you'd be tempted to skim right over. But our mission today is to show you that actually within these pages there are some surprising nuggets of knowledge, fascinating insights into history, leadership, and a people's foundational story. Think of it as your shortcut, maybe, to being truly well-informed about this rich historical record. We want to reveal its hidden depths and, yeah, surprising relevance even for us today.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And what really stands out about First Chronicles, I think, is that it offers a very intentional perspective on Israel's history. It's quite distinct from, say, the books of Samuel or Kings.
Yeah.
It's not just recounting past events, it's a focused account. It seems meticulously designed for a specific audience, likely that post-exilic community, people looking to reestablish their identity, their purpose after this catastrophic loss.
Right, after the Babylonian exile.
Exactly. So we'll be connecting the dots today to reveal why these seemingly dense details, these long genealogies, these meticulous temple preparations, the leadership lessons, why they actually matter. They matter not just for ancient history, but for understanding these, well, universal themes. Imagine trying to rebuild your whole life, your community, when everything feels lost. First Chronicles offers a kind of profound blueprint for finding your grounding again, your purpose, even divine guidance. That's the powerful, timeless insight sort of hidden in these accounts.
Absolutely. And when you approach it with that lens, suddenly the names start to, well, maybe not sing, but they definitely tell a much bigger, more hopeful story. So where does the chronicler, this unnamed author, choose to begin this epic story? You might expect kings, maybe battles, right, from a historical account. But no, instead it kicks off with this truly sweeping, almost universal genealogy. What do you make of that choice? Kicking off an entire book that way, stretching back to the dawn of time itself, how does that set the tone?
It's a really striking way to start, isn't it? And the sheer scope is precisely what makes it so compelling. By starting from Adam, Foreign Chronicles immediately anchors Israel's history, not just as some isolated tribal story, but within this universal human narrative, originating from creation itself. So this isn't merely a collection of, dry names just to establish who's related to who. It's a meticulously preserved record establishing a foundational identity, an unbroken continuity, and crucially, a divine purpose for this people.
Continuity would be key after the disruption of exile.
Absolutely. For its original audience, this community looking to rebuild after the trauma and dispersion of exile, this deep universal root was incredibly important. It was a powerful statement, really, of their enduring connection to God's plan for all humanity. It affirmed that despite their present circumstances, feeling maybe small or defeated, they were part of something vast, something ancient, always intended by a higher power. It gave them a bedrock of identity when everything else felt so uncertain.
And within that universal beginning, the text is incredibly thorough. It takes us from Adam, Seth, Enosh, tracing generations all the way to Noah, then his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. It's a remarkable sweep of early human history, moving quickly from the individual to the global.
Indeed. The chronicler doesn't just skim over these early parts. The text then broadens its scope, detailing the many diverse nations that sprang forth from Noah's sons, Japheth and Ham. It covers a vast array of peoples and regions from the beginnings of civilization. This quickly establishes a global context for the whole narrative. It's like a reminder that even as the focus eventually narrows, Israel's story is part of a much larger global tapestry of humanity. It emphasizes that this particular story unfolds within a world already populated by many different peoples, all crucially originating from a common source.
And from that wide global view, the focus then starts to narrow, doesn't it? It inexorably pulls us towards the central lineage that will define the rest of the book.
Yes, the narrative meticulously traces the line of Shem. It moves through generations like Arpachshad, Shelah, Eber, Peleg, Ru, Serug, Nahor, Terah, leading directly to Abraham. From Abraham, it then focuses intensely on Isaac and finally Jacob, the patriarchs of Israel. But what's significant, I think, is that before it commits solely to Jacob's direct line, the chronicler even acknowledges Abraham's other significant descendants.
Right, like Ishmael.
Exactly. We see Ishmael and his 12 sons listed: Nebaioth, Kedar, Adbeel, and so on. And also the sons born to Abraham's other wife, Keturah, like Zimran and Jokshan. And it even traces the line of Esau, who was also called Edom, including his sons and the early kings who reigned in Edom. This highlights the broader regional context, the neighboring peoples that existed before Israel even had its own king. So this deep background establishes a really comprehensive historical framework. It solidifies Israel's place and relationships within the ancient world, showing their origins aren't isolated, but deeply interconnected with the peoples around them.
It's like the chronicler is saying, okay, before we tell you about us, understand where we fit into the grand scheme of things and just how comprehensive our history truly is. And then almost abruptly, we move from that global view to the very particular, focusing heavily on Jacob's son, Judah. Why? Why is this tribe singled out for such detailed attention right from the beginning? Multiple chapters dedicated to his family lines. What's the driving force there?
That's a critical observation, and the answer lies, I think, in the chronicler's primary agenda, which seems deeply theological and historical. The text feels meticulously crafted to highlight the legitimacy and the profound divine promise associated with the Davidic monarchy. So the meticulous tracing of Judah's lineage directly to David is absolutely fundamental to this whole narrative. It's not just a historical note. It's about proving David's divine right to rule. And by extension, the rightful continuation of his line. This was an absolutely crucial message for that post-exilic community looking for hope, looking for a restoration of their past glory embodied in David. The text first lists all 12 sons of Israel: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Joseph, Benjamin, Naphtali, Gad, Asher. But then, like you said, it immediately pivots hard to Judah, signaling its paramount importance for what follows.
And the detail within Judah's line is remarkable. It goes into Perez and Zerah, two of Judah's sons, but then quickly and clearly establishes that direct line leading to David. Hezron, Ram, Aminadab, Nahshon, who's a leader of Judah himself, right? Back in Numbers.
That's right, Nahshon, son of Aminadab, leader of the tribe of Judah during the wilderness wanderings. Then Salma, Boaz of Ruth, Obed, Jesse, and finally David himself. It's an undeniable, unbroken chain, just meticulously laid out for the reader.
No ambiguity there.
None at all. And within Judah, we also find significant sublineages, like those related to Caleb, including his wives and children, Azubah, Jerioth, Ephrathah, who is the mother of Hur. These genealogies don't just list names, they connect them to the establishment and habitation of specific towns like Kiriath Jearim and, significantly, Bethlehem. This demonstrates the spread, the consolidation, the territorial claims of this foundational tribe. For the returning exiles, this kind of detail about land and settlement was vital. It helped reestablish their claims, their identity. It wasn't just about who their ancestors were, but, where they belonged, what their historical rights were in the land.
And amidst all these detailed lists, these connections to places, you stumble upon something really unexpected and quite beautiful, that intriguing, concise story of Jabez. His prayer. It's only 2 verses in chapter 4, but it truly stands out. It's a surprising moment of personal spirituality in what could seem like a dry, impersonal record. He prayed, "Oh, that you would bless me and enlarge my territory. Let your hand be with me and keep me from harm so that I will be free from pain." And the text says simply, God granted his request. What does including a personal plea like that tell us about the chronicler's message?
That's a wonderful little nugget, as you called it earlier. It is indeed a captivating departure from the typical lists. It offers this rare glimpse into the individual spiritual life that underpin the whole communal identity. Its inclusion, I think, highlights that even within this grand historical narrative of kings and tribes, personal faith matters. God's responsiveness to individual, heartfelt prayers is deeply valued, celebrated even. It teaches that even seemingly minor figures can have a profound spiritual impact. And interestingly, the text then expands on the descendants of Simeon, a tribe often associated closely with Judah, detailing their movements, their military actions, even including a reference to King Hezekiah. This further anchors these genealogies and historical events in the broader narrative of Israel. It shows the chronicler isn't just listing names randomly, he's subtly weaving in moments that underscore faith, divine intervention, historical connections, all designed to offer hope and a sense of continuity to his audience.
So beyond Judah, we get this fascinating, if sometimes maybe briefer, look at the other tribes. What unique details or stories do these accounts offer about the rest of Israel? It feels important that the chronicler doesn't just stop at David's line, but makes sure to include everyone, painting a complete picture.
Yes, if we connect this to the bigger picture, these sections are absolutely crucial. They affirm the integrity of all 12 tribes as one people, one united nation under God, even as they face challenges like exile and dispersion. They reveal insights into their specific settlement patterns, their military capabilities, sometimes even their spiritual integrity or failings. It provides a complete, holistic picture of pre-exilic Israel. Take, for instance, Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh who settled east of the Jordan. Reuben, famously lost his birthright because he defiled his father's bed. But despite that, his descendants still numbered an impressive 44,760 mighty warriors.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is. This detail underlines the continued importance and strength of the tribe, even with past transgressions. It showcases God's continued blessing, perhaps despite human failing.
And it also notes their military prowess, but emphasizes God's role in their victories, doesn't it?
Precisely. Their settlement patterns east of the Jordan are highlighted. But more significantly, their military successes against the Hagarites are emphasized. And the text explicitly states why they were successful. They, quote, cried out to God for help during the battle, and he answered their plea because they trusted him. That's a powerful theological statement embedded right there. It stresses trust and prayer as key elements in securing divine help. But what's equally vital is that the chronicler doesn't shy away from the difficult truths. It clearly states the reasons for these eastern tribes eventually going into exile to Assyria, their unfaithfulness to God.
So it's a cautionary tale, too.
Exactly. It reinforces the chronicler's overarching theme. Faithfulness brings blessing, while disobedience has severe consequences. A really vital lesson for a community trying to rebuild after exile, trying not to repeat past mistakes.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting, especially for understanding the structure of Israelite society. The Levites. They don't receive land inheritance like the other tribes, but they're given this distinct, utterly crucial role in the spiritual life of the nation. What exactly was that role, and how is it organized in such meticulous detail here? It feels almost like a separate constitution just for divine service.
You've absolutely hit on a key point. This section, Chapter 6 primarily, provides the detailed blueprint, the constitution, as you put it, for Levitical service. It highlights the paramount importance of the priesthood and temple worship for the nation's identity and relationship with God. It establishes the direct line of Aaron, ensuring continuity and legitimacy for priestly functions. This was vital for the post-exilic community's spiritual restoration, knowing the proper lineage was still intact. The text lays out the three foundational branches of Levi: Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. This tripartite division formed the basis for all their diverse services within the tabernacle and later the temple. Then, the extensive lineage of the high priest is meticulously traced through Aaron's son Eleazar. It goes from Phinehas all the way down to Jehozadak, who was the high priest taken into exile during Nebuchadnezzar's time.
So that proves the line wasn't broken by the exile.
Precisely. It provides crucial historical continuity and legitimizes the priestly office for the returning community. It shows the line of succession was preserved even through that tumultuous period, ready to be reinstituted.
And it wasn't just about the high priest performing sacrifices. It was about the entire support structure for worship, including the musicians. It really highlights how integrated music was in their worship.
Yes, the appointment of the three main Levitical families for song service is a significant and beautiful detail. It specifies Heman, Asaph, and Ethan, who's also known as Jeduthun. These weren't just background musicians. They were integral to the worship experience. The text even describes them as prophesying with lyres, harps, and cymbals, suggesting a deeply spiritual role. Then, the specific responsibilities of Aaron and his sons, the priests, in handling the most sacred duties are detailed. Managing the altar of burnt offering, the altar of incense, entering the most holy place. It emphasizes the sanctity and precision required. And beyond this, a critical detail often overlooked: the meticulous allocation of 48 cities, including designated cities of refuge, complete with pasture lands to the Levites throughout all Israel.
So they were spread out among the tribes.
Exactly. This demonstrates their widespread dispersal and their vital role as spiritual guides and instructors throughout the land. They were there to ensure God's law was known and practiced everywhere, not just in Jerusalem. It shows his profound commitment to pervasive spiritual education and access for everyone.
It's incredible how every aspect of the nation's spiritual life was thought through and organized, down to the last detail. It really speaks to a profound vision for a divinely ordered society. And then we move to the other western tribes: Issachar, Benjamin, Naphtali, the western half of Manasseh, Ephraim, and Asher. What do we learn about them? How do their stories contribute to the larger narrative?
Well, these accounts, though sometimes maybe briefer than Judah's, still offer significant insights into the composition and capabilities of Israel as a whole nation. Issachar, for instance, is notably described as having a large number of mighty warriors, 87,000 listed in their genealogy. This highlights their military strength and contribution to national defense. Benjamin gets a particularly detailed genealogy. It notes many sons and heads of families, and crucially, it connects their lineage directly to King Saul.
Ah, the first king.
Right. This reinforces Benjamin's historical royal ties and significance, even though Judah ultimately held preeminence in the monarchy later on. It's a nod to the complexities of Israel's past leadership. For Ephraim, there's the notable mention of Shira, a daughter credited with building major towns like Lower and Upper Beth-horon and Uzzen-Shira. This indicates their widespread settlements in central Israel and their contribution to its infrastructure. And Asher is highlighted for their numerous heads of families and a large number of mighty warriors, 26,000 available for military service. So these details collectively paint this picture of a diverse yet unified nation, each tribe contributing distinct strengths, distinct characteristics to the overall fabric and identity of Israel. It emphasizes that every part had a role in the collective whole.
Okay, so after all these expansive genealogies, tracing lines back to Adam, detailing all the tribes, Chapter 9 makes a significant jump forward in time. It seems to reiterate some of the earlier family lines, but with a very specific, very practical focus, those who returned after the devastating Babylonian exile. So what's the significance of this repetition? Why return to genealogies, but with this particular lens of return and rebuilding?
That's a crucial transition point, you're right. The chronicler is writing for that post-exilic community. People grappling with the trauma of displacement, the loss of their land, the immense challenge of rebuilding their society, their city, their spiritual life. So this section, far from being redundant, is a powerful statement of restoration, reestablishment. It shows how the people of Israel meticulously maintained their identity and re-inhabited their foundational city, Jerusalem, even after such devastation. It's a testament to their resilience and profoundly to God's faithfulness in bringing them back. The chapter begins with this clear statement that all Israel was recorded in the Book of the Kings of Israel, underscoring the vital importance of these records for maintaining national identity, historical continuity, especially when that identity might have felt fractured or lost.
And it's not just all Israel generally, but specific groups and families are identified as the first to resettle Jerusalem, highlighting the organized nature of the return, perhaps.
Exactly. It identifies the very first groups to resettle Jerusalem after the exile. Not just general Israelites, but specifically priests, Levites, and the temple servants. This highlights the immediate critical focus on reestablishing the spiritual heart of the nation before anything else. That was priority one. We then see specific families listed from Judah, Benjamin, Ephraim, and Manasseh who lived in Jerusalem, demonstrating the repopulation, the reintegration of various tribes back into the capital city. Furthermore, the detailed duties of the Levites in this newly reestablished community are laid out with precision, serving as gatekeepers for the temple, specifying their gates, their watches managing the temple treasuries, even preparing the ingredients for offerings like flour, wine, and oil. This shows a very deliberate, very organized approach to reinstituting worship and temple service. It emphasizes that the sacred routines were being meticulously restored.
It's all about bringing order back, isn't it? To people who had experienced immense disruption, even the past royalty is carefully connected to the present community.
Yes, and crucially, the re-emphasis of Saul's lineage within the Benjaminite families living in Jerusalem provides this powerful link between the past royalty and the present community. It affirms continuity, historical rootedness, despite the radical shifts in leadership and the challenges of exile. This whole chapter is really about demonstrating that the foundations are being laid once more, that the identity is intact, that the future is being built upon the rich, detailed heritage of the past. It was a profound message of hope and reaffirmation for those listening back then.
With the sprawling genealogies now firmly established, the narrative dramatically shifts. It zooms in on King David, who truly becomes the central figure of First Chronicles. But it starts, quite dramatically, with the tragic end of his predecessor, Saul. How does the chronicler frame Saul's downfall and David's rise here? It feels very deliberate, almost like a theological statement being made right away.
You're right, it is very deliberate. The chronicler's specific narrative emphasis here is striking. Unlike, say, the Book of Samuel, that gives a more complex picture of Saul, First Chronicles swiftly and unequivocally attributes Saul's defeat and death to his profound unfaithfulness. This narrative choice immediately clears the way for David's divinely ordained kingship. And that kingship is then immediately connected to his deep spiritual commitment, especially concerning the Ark of the Covenant. The detailed account of Saul's death at Mount Gilboa paints a grim picture. Wounded by Philistines, taking his own life, his three sons, Jonathan, Abinadab, Malchishua, dying with him. But the chronicler doesn't stop at the facts. It provides an explicit theological explanation for his demise, his unfaithfulness to God, his failure to obey God's word, and his fatal decision to consult a spirit medium instead of seeking counsel directly from God. This acts as a stark cautionary contrast to David, whose reign is consistently portrayed here as one of faithfulness, devotion, a divinely blessed leader.
And even in death, there's that moment of valor from the men of Jabesh-Gilead retrieving Saul's body. It highlights the severity of the situation and the leadership vacuum Saul left behind.
Yes, the Philistines' desecration of Saul's body and the valiant act of the men of Jabesh-Gilead retrieving and burying the bodies underscores the depth of Saul's fall and the desperate need for new, divinely sanctioned leadership. In stark contrast, David's immediate and unanimous anointing as king over all Israel by the elders at Hebron is portrayed as seamless, divinely sanctioned. It highlights unity, consensus around David. And immediately following his anointing, the text highlights David's strategic capture of Jerusalem, previously known as Jebus. David takes the stronghold, renames it the City of David, and his commander Joab earns prominence. This cements David's early success and establishes his capital as the future spiritual and political heart of the nation.
Now, David wasn't just a charismatic leader. He was surrounded by this extraordinary group of individuals, his mighty warriors, their legendary figures. What made them so exceptional? How did their actions exemplify the growing support and maybe the divine backing for David's kingdom during this formative period?
This section, chapters 11 and 12, powerfully highlights the incredible caliber of David's loyal followers and the palpable divine favor surrounding his ascent. Their individual acts of daring courage aren't just heroic anecdotes. They illustrate the deep loyalty and the spiritual backing that strengthened David's rule and helped consolidate his kingdom so quickly. The text details the elite group of the three, Jashabim, Eleazar, Shammah, and then the 30, including figures like Abishai and Benaiah, noting their specific, almost superhuman acts of valor. For instance, Jashabim is credited with striking down 300 men with his spear in one go. Eleazar fought so hard his hand basically fused to his sword. And Benaiah did remarkable things, killing 2 lion-like men of Moab, even killing an Egyptian giant who was over 7 feet tall, using the giant's own spear.
Oh, these are not just soldiers.
Not at all. They're portrayed as a force of nature, driven by fierce loyalty, and often a sense of divine purpose. They truly embody the strength of David's new kingdom.
There's also that memorable, almost personal story that shows their profound devotion to David even at great personal risk. The water from Bethlehem.
Indeed. The account of David casually mentioning his thirst for water from the cistern near Bethlehem when it was occupied by Philistines is profoundly telling. His mighty men, without a second thought apparently, broke through heavily defended enemy lines just to retrieve it for him. David's response, however, is equally revealing. He pours it out as an offering to Jehovah, saying he couldn't drink the blood of these men who risked their lives. This act of reverence underscores his spiritual depth, his recognition that such daring acts came from God's favor and the loyalty inspired by his divine anointing. Beyond these elite few, the text emphasizes the significant influx of diverse warriors from all tribes who came to David at Hebron to make him king. The numbers are impressive. Thousands from Judah and Simeon, over 20,000 from Ephraim, an astonishing 50,000 from Zebulun prepared for battle with all kinds of weapons. And crucially, 200 chiefs of Issachar who understood the times and knew what Israel should do, indicating not just military might, but strategic wisdom, discernment. The description of their unified purpose, their perfect heart in supporting David, culminating in 3 days of feasting at Hebron. It paints this vivid picture of a nation enthusiastically rallying behind its chosen leader, recognizing God's hand in his ascent.
Okay, let's unpack this. One of the most significant and dramatic events in this part of the narrative is David's attempt to bring the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem. It's a moment of both great joy and, initially, grave consequence. The first attempt ends in tragedy, right? Leading to a crucial, hard-won lesson about the sacred.
That initial failure with Uzzah is incredibly poignant. It serves as this powerful lesson about understanding divine protocol, the profound sacredness of God's presence. It unequivocally underscores the critical necessity of adhering to God's specific instructions for handling the ark, rather than relying on human custom or convenience, no matter how well-intentioned. David's initial decision to bring the ark from Kiriath-Jearim was a good intention. He consulted with all the leaders, showing communal involvement. But the transportation method, putting it on a new cart, was a deviation. It wasn't how Moses had commanded the Levites to carry it on their shoulders.
And the deviation, though it might seem minor to us, had devastating consequences for Uzzah.
Precisely. When the oxen stumbled and Uzzah reached out just to steady the ark, He was immediately struck dead. This tragic event profoundly affected David. His reaction was anger and fear. He left the ark at the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite for 3 months. But what's fascinating is the subsequent blessing that came upon Obed-Edom and his entire household during the ark's stay there. This demonstrates God's favor, God's blessing, when his presence is honored and respected in a household, even if it got there under difficult circumstances. It's a testament to the transformative power of God's presence when received with reverence.
Before we get to the second successful attempt, there's a brief interlude in the narrative. It almost seems to underscore God's continued blessing on David despite that setback. We see Hiram, king of Tyre, helping David build his palace, and David winning decisive victories over the Philistines. It's like a signal that David still has divine favor.
Yes, that interlude serves a crucial purpose. It reinforces the divine legitimacy of David's kingship, his continued successes, setting the stage for the correct reattempt with the ark. David clearly learned from the mistake. For the second attempt, he meticulously instructs the Levites to carry the ark on their shoulders, precisely as commanded by Moses in the law. Adherence to divine instruction is paramount now. Furthermore, the priests, Zadok and Abiathar, and key Levites like Uriel, Isaiah, Joel, and others are sanctified, prepared for this sacred duty. It emphasizes the purity, the readiness required for handling God's presence.
And the atmosphere surrounding this second attempt is completely different, isn't it? It's filled with celebration, reverence, a truly national moment of spiritual triumph.
Absolutely. The procession into the city of David is described with tremendous joy and celebration, a stark contrast to the fear of the previous attempt. It's accompanied by numerous sacrifices, 7 bulls, 7 rams, and a multitude of musical instruments, lyres, harps, cymbals, trumpets, horns, creating this vibrant, cacophonous symphony of praise. David himself leads the enthusiastic worship, dancing with all his might in a linen ephod, expressing unreserved devotion. Although this famously earns disapproval from his wife Michal, it highlights the depth of his personal worship compared to, maybe, conventional royal decorum.
Finally, the ark is in its rightful place in Jerusalem, and David moves quickly to establish formal, continuous worship around it. This seems like the real culmination of this whole section.
Indeed. The ark is placed inside the tent David had prepared for it, signifying its central place in the nation's life. Immediately, numerous burnt offerings and fellowship offerings are made, symbolizing atonement and communion with God. David also generously provides food, bread, dates, raisins to all the people, signifying a national celebration, a covenant meal, uniting everyone in this sacred joy. Crucially, David formally appoints Asaph and his brothers, along with Heman and Jeduthun, to minister regularly before the ark, leading in praise and thanksgiving. This sets up a continuous, organized system of worship, the foundation for future temple service. David then leads this grand song of thanks, incorporating elements from Psalms we recognize, 105, 96, 106. This powerful hymn calls the people to remember God's works, declare his glory, worship him, give thanks, acknowledge his everlasting loyal love. This moment isn't just historical, it's a profound act of national worship, theological declaration, setting the tone for Israel's spiritual identity. And to ensure it continues, David establishes continuous service before the ark in Jerusalem and also at the high place in Gibeon, where the tabernacle still was. This meticulous organization ensures worship and sacrifice remain central, unbroken in the nation's life.
Having established the lineage, consolidated his kingdom, brought the ark to Jerusalem. David's gaze now turns to an even grander vision, a magnificent permanent dwelling for God himself, a temple. This isn't just about building a structure. It feels like it's about cementing Israel's future, its spiritual identity. It marks a pivotal shift in the chronicler's story, moving from establishing roots to building for the future.
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is how the chronicler emphasizes David's deep, almost singular desire to build the temple, even though ultimately he's not the one destined to complete it. It profoundly underscores David's heart of devotion and sets the stage perfectly for Solomon's future role. It highlights the continuity of God's plan across generations. It's a powerful message. Even when one individual can't fulfill a divine task, the purpose itself endures, carried forward by those who come after. It demonstrates God's enduring plan. David first expresses his desire to Nathan the prophet. He notes the contrast. He, the king, lives in a house of cedar, while the ark of God resides in a mere tent. Nathan initially approves, seeing it as a good, noble intention.
But then there's a direct intervention from God. That changes the plan, revealing a deeper divine intention, right?
Yes, that very night, God speaks directly to Nathan, correcting the initial human assumption. He informs David that as a man of war, someone who has shed much blood, he will not be the one to build the house. Instead, David's son will build it, a son associated with peace, Solomon. This divine decision is immediately followed by this profound promise to David, what we call the Davidic covenant. God promises an enduring dynasty, a kingdom established forever, with God's loyal love never departing from David's lineage. This is a core theological promise, not just for David, but for all of Israel's future hope, linking it to this continuous, divinely backed kingship. David's response to this overwhelming promise is remarkable. It's a deeply humble, thankful prayer. He acknowledges God's greatness, God's faithfulness, expressing awe at the magnitude of God's plan for him and his descendants. This highlights his spiritual integrity, his willing acceptance of God's will, even when it differed from his own fervent desires.
Beyond his spiritual aspirations for the temple, David was, as we've seen, a formidable military and political leader who truly consolidated the kingdom. What were some of his key achievements that specifically set the stage for the future temple project? It seems like his administrative and military successes were directly linked to providing the foundation for that sacred enterprise.
That's right. When we connect this to the bigger picture, these sections, chapters 18 through 20, and later chapter 27, demonstrably showcase David's divinely backed authority and his systematic, highly effective approach to governance. The securing of borders through military victories and the collection of vast resources from his conquests weren't just acts of warfare or empire building in isolation. They were crucial practical steps directly linked to providing the immense wealth and materials needed for the future temple. The text meticulously documents David's successful campaigns against numerous surrounding nations: Philistines, Moabites, King Hadadezer of Zobah, from whom David captured 1,000 chariots, 7,000 cavalrymen, 20,000 infantry. He also decisively defeated the Arameans of Damascus and subdued the Edomites through his general Joab. He expanded Israel's influence and secured its borders significantly.
And it specifically mentions what he did with the spoils of these victories, emphasizing their ultimate destination, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The chronicler emphasizes the immense quantities of gold shields, bronze, gold, silver collected from these conquests, and explicitly notes that David dedicated them to Jehovah. That phrase is critical. It directly foreshadows and justifies their later use in the temple's construction and furnishings. It demonstrates that these, you might say, secular victories ultimately served a sacred purpose in David's mind and in the chronicler's narrative. Further military actions include the war with Emin and Aram, sparked by King Hilun's insulting treatment of David's envoys. David sends Joab, who demonstrates strategic brilliance by dividing his forces to fight both enemies simultaneously. The resulting decisive victories include the defeat of Arameans from beyond the Euphrates and killing their commander, Shobach. There are also documented battles against giants, including one with 6 fingers and 6 toes, and Lamith, the brother of Goliath, showcasing the continued might of David's warriors and God's hand in their victories. The capture of Rabbah, the Ammonite capital, where David took their crown in immense splendor, further contributed to the vast resources dedicated to God.
So David was building not just a kingdom, but maybe something approaching an empire, and meticulously organizing every aspect of it: administration, military.
Precisely. The text lists his chief administrators: Joab, army commander; Jehoshaphat, recorder; Zadok and Ahimelech, priests; Shavshah, secretary; Benaiah over the elite guard; and David's own sons in key positions. This shows a well-structured, effective governing body ensuring stability. Furthermore, chapter 27 gives this incredibly detailed description of the military organization. 12 divisions, 24,000 men each, serving on a monthly rotation. This highlights the kingdom's immense military strength, order, preparedness, a standing defense force. David also maintained comprehensive administrative oversight of all tribal territories and royal resources: treasuries, vineyards, olive groves, livestock supported by a council of advisors. These details reinforce the image of David as a provident leader, systematically ensuring the necessary infrastructure and vast resources were in place for the future sacred project. He was planning not just for his reign, but for generations to come.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and perhaps a bit perplexing for modern readers. First Chronicles recounts this deeply troubling event: David taking a census that leads to a devastating plague. What's the significance of this seemingly problematic act, especially since it brings such divine judgment? And how does it ultimately connect to the temple? It feels like a very high-stakes lesson, a pivotal moment.
That's an excellent point to pause on. This event in chapter 21 raises that important question. Why was the census a sin? And what profound, albeit painful, outcome did it lead to? This incident powerfully highlights the consequences of acting outside divine will. It's often interpreted by commentators as, perhaps, a display of human pride, David relying on the sheer number of his soldiers rather than on God's strength and provision. But it also underscores God's mercy, ultimately culminating in the precise identification of the temple's sacred location. The narrative explicitly states that Satan stood up against Israel and incited David to count Israel. This external influence suggests it was more than just a simple administrative headcount. There was a malevolent force behind the temptation. Even Joab, David's experienced commander, immediately sensed the wrongness of it. He was strongly reluctant, questioning its purpose, which further underscores the problematic nature of David's command.
And the results of the census, once taken, were staggering, leading directly to immediate and severe judgment.
Indeed. The census reported 11,100,000 fighting men in Israel, plus 470,000 in Judah. The sheer scale, while impressive, seems to have been the source of that sinful pride. God's displeasure was immediate and severe. Judgment was delivered by an angel, leading to a devastating plague that tragically killed 70,000 men across Israel. David's response, however, is crucial. He immediately repents. He confesses his sin with profound humility, pleading for mercy, taking full responsibility. He says, "I am the one who has sinned. Let your hand, please, be against me and my father's house, but do not bring this plague on your people." This heartfelt repentance is absolutely key to the story's resolution.
So the plague is stopped, and the location of the temple is revealed in this dramatic, divinely orchestrated fashion, transforming a place of judgment into a sacred site.
Precisely. The angel of Jehovah, the instrument of judgment, stopped right at the threshing floor of Ornan, also known as Araunah the Jebusite. This divine intervention at a specific geographical point becomes the key. David, recognizing the profound sacredness of the moment and the dire need for atonement, insisted on buying the threshing floor for its full price, 600 shekels of gold. He explicitly refused to take it for free, stating he would not take what is yours for Jehovah and offer burnt sacrifices for nothing. This shows his integrity, his understanding that true worship, true atonement, requires genuine sacrifice. He then built an altar there, offered burnt sacrifices and fellowship offerings. The text records that fire came down from heaven, confirming God's acceptance, and the plague immediately stopped. The profound significance is clear. This specific site, born out of national crisis, sin, repentance, and confirmed by divine acceptance, is revealed as the future location for the house of Jehovah and the altar of burnt offering for Israel. It transforms a place of judgment into the sacred space of reconciliation and divine presence, making it the very foundation of Israel's future spiritual life.
So David, though forbidden to build the physical structure himself, dedicates his remaining years to this unprecedented scale of preparation for the temple. What did this involve? What does it tell us about his commitment? It seems like he truly poured everything he had into setting Solomon up for success, ensuring no stone was left unturned.
What's truly compelling here is David's unwavering spiritual dedication. Despite the personal disappointment of not building it himself, he gathers immense resources. He even provides a detailed architectural blueprint demonstrating profound reverence for God's future dwelling and this extraordinary desire to set his son up for success. He immediately declares Ornan's threshing floor as the designated site, establishing it as sacred ground. The text then details the vast quantities of materials David accumulated: iron for nails and clamps, enormous amounts of bronze, an incredible supply of cedar timbers from Sidon and Tyre. He secured skilled stonecutters and craftsmen, ensuring the highest quality workmanship would be available.
And his personal contribution was truly staggering, a testament to his immense wealth and devotion.
Absolutely. David's personal contribution is recorded as 100,000 talents of gold and 1,000,000 talents of silver, plus immeasurable bronze and iron. A single talent of gold was maybe 75 pounds. So we're talking about wealth that is almost incomprehensible, all dedicated to this divine project. Beyond the material, David also provides meticulous instructions to Solomon. He charges his son to be strong and courageous, emphasizing the temple is for God, and Solomon must diligently obey God's commands to prosper in building it. This isn't just about resources, it's about spiritual fortitude, obedience, passing on a legacy of faith. David then convenes all the leaders of Israel, delivers this inspiring public address, announces God's choice of Solomon, and urges them to assist in the monumental undertaking.
And the people's response was equally overwhelming, wasn't it? A true national outpouring of generosity, collective devotion.
It was. The text describes the overwhelming generosity of the leaders and the people. In response to David's fervent call, they contributed vast additional amounts: 5,000 talents and 10,000 derricks of gold, 10,000 talents of silver, 18,000 talents of bronze, 100,000 talents of iron. This outpouring of voluntary contributions highlights the collective devotion, the unity of the nation behind the temple project. It's a powerful demonstration of shared purpose. David then offers this powerful, deeply moving prayer of thanksgiving. He acknowledges God's sovereignty over all wealth, power, glory. He humbly recognizes that all they have comes from God and asks God to keep the people's hearts loyal to him in this grand endeavor. The people respond with joy, bowing down, making sacrifices. It culminates in Solomon's second anointing as king. He ascends to the throne of Jehovah, enjoys immense prosperity, marking a successful, divinely sanctioned transition of power, all meticulously prepared for by his father's profound foresight and dedication.
Beyond the physical building, the accumulation of materials, David also meticulously organized the people who would serve in the temple. Chapters 23 to 26 give this incredibly detailed blueprint for how sacred service should be carried out. It extends far beyond just the construction. It speaks to a deep vision for continuous, perpetual worship for generations to come.
That's a crucial insight. This section raises that important question. Why such intricate organization of the Levites, priests, musicians, gatekeepers? This meticulous structuring highlights the immense importance placed on order, reverence, specialized roles in sacred worship. It was about ensuring the continuous, proper functioning of the spiritual life of the nation for generations, creating a divinely appointed system. David first numbers the Levites, 38,000 total. He then designates their primary functions, 24,000 for the actual work of the temple, 6,000 as officers and judges, 4,000 as gatekeepers, and 4,000 as musicians. This shows incredible foresight into the diverse, ongoing needs of temple service.
And the priests, Aaron's descendants, were given a similar highly structured organization, emphasizing their unique sacred role.
Precisely. Aaron's descendants, the priests, were meticulously divided into 24 courses or divisions by lot. This system ensured an orderly rotation of duties in the temple, preventing chaos, ensuring priestly functions, preparing offerings, managing holy things, blessing the people were consistently and properly performed year-round. These were core functions vital for the nation's spiritual well-being. The musicians and singers were also given specific, prominent roles. 288 trained musicians from the families of Heman, Asaph, and Jeduthun, also organized into 24 divisions. And the text emphasizes their role in prophesying with the harp, the lyre, and the cymbals, highlighting the spiritual inspired nature of their musical service. It was far more than entertainment. It was spiritual communication, leadership.
And the practical, but no less important, role of the gatekeepers, essential for security, proper functioning of the whole complex.
Absolutely. The appointment of gatekeepers from the Levites, including figures like Meshlemiah and Obed-Edom, remember him from the Ark story, was also incredibly detailed and vital. Their divisions, also 24 courses, were responsible for guarding specific gates, east, north, south, west, managing the treasuries of God's house, ensuring proper access and security, controlling who entered the sacred grounds. The text even highlights Obed-Edom's large family and the blessings they received, serving as a testament to faithfulness, the rewards of dedicated service, even in seemingly mundane tasks. Finally, other Levites were assigned roles managing treasuries of sacred gifts, overseeing outside administrative duties for both the temple and the king's service. It demonstrates this comprehensive, integrated system where every role, no matter how seemingly minor, contributed to the overall functioning of God's house and kingdom. It's a complete societal, religious blueprint designed for enduring order, devotion, and a continuous legacy of worship.
So what does this all mean then? We've journeyed through these sprawling genealogies defining identity, the intense battles establishing a kingdom, the moments of divine intervention shaping destiny, and these incredibly detailed blueprints for a future temple that spoke of profound spiritual aspirations. This deep dive into 1 Chronicles really feels like so much more than just a historical record, doesn't it? It's been a profound journey into the very fabric of ancient Israel's identity, its purpose, its future.
Indeed. This deep dive truly reveals the profound, multifaceted purpose of 1 Chronicles. It seems meticulously crafted to reestablish identity, continuity, divine purpose for a people returning from exile, reminding them who they were, who God called them to be. It masterfully emphasizes the enduring covenant with David, underscoring the legitimacy of his royal line, the hope for a future king. It highlights the centrality of the temple and its proper worship, providing this exhaustive framework for its construction, its service, its sacred functions. The book stresses the immense importance of meticulous preparation, order, faithful service, portraying these as essential for a thriving community. It's a story not just of the past, but really a comprehensive blueprint for a sacred future, urging its listeners to understand their heritage and embrace their calling with diligence, with devotion. It's about finding hope, finding direction, even in the wake of profound loss.
It truly is a shortcut, like we said, to being well-informed about the foundational narrative of Israel from this unique, deeply intentional perspective. The details, even the long lists of names, the intricate organizational charts, they suddenly have this compelling vital purpose, you start to see the incredible foresight, the dedication that went into preserving this history and outlining this vision for the future of a people. So here's a final provocative thought for you, our listeners, to mull over. How does this ancient emphasis on lineage and identity, on meticulous planning, and on devoted, organized service, how does that resonate with the foundations and organizational structures we value in our own communities, our families, our institutions today? What sacred spaces or purposes in your own life, whether they're literal or metaphorical, would deserve such deliberate preparation, such detailed planning, and such unwavering dedication to ensure their enduring legacy? Something to think about.